Welcome everyone, LANCESCURV here, the Scurv podcast. When I did the story on Serena Williams, I opened up a Pandora's box in my mind of other things that were related to her, not directly as far as her name, but the conditions around her mind. And part of it brought me back to Sarah Baartman. If you don't know who Sarah Baartman is, I'm going to explain through introduction and set up the mindset that was and still is around Sarah Baartman, and eventually the modern day Black woman, and how much has not changed. Sarah Baartman's life tells a story that is painful, revealing, and deeply symbolic. Her body was turned into a public object, her humanity erased, and her identity stripped away in the name of entertainment, profit, and racist curiosity. She was not seen as a woman, not seen as a person, not treated as a human. She was presented as a spectacle, a product, and a display item for a society that believed it had the right to own, label, and sell Black bodies. Her story is not about one woman. It's about a system that built wealth by dehumanizing people. It's about how racism turned science, culture, and entertainment into tools of abuse. It shows how Black women's bodies were turned into objects of obsession, mockery, and control under the excuse of curiosity and so-called education. Sarah Baartman did not choose fame. She did not choose the stage. She did not choose to become a symbol. She was trapped inside a machine that made money from humiliation and suffering. Her body shape, especially her hips and buttocks, became the reason for her public display. And those physical traits were used to label her as something unnatural and animal-like. What happened to her is not accidental. It was planned, organized, and protected by law, business, and social power. She was marketed, transported, and displayed in spaces where people paid money to stare at her body like a museum object. Her identity was replaced with a nickname that reduced her to a stereotype and stripped her of her dignity. Her story matters today because it shows how exploitation can be dressed up as entertainment, science, and culture. It shows how racism does not always wear chains, but often wears suits, contracts, and polite language while doing the same damage. Sarah Baartman was born in Southern Africa and lived as a normal human being before being taken into a system that saw her body as valuable property. Her physical shape became the focus of attention, not her mind, not her voice, not her life story. The people who controlled her saw her body as a product, not a person. She was transported to Europe under the promise of opportunity, but what awaited her was a life of public display. She was placed on stages, inside cages, and in exhibition halls where people paid to stare, point, laugh, and judge. Her body was framed as something strange and exotic, as if it did not belong to humanity. She was forced to stand in front of crowds while people commented on her shape, her size, and her features. Her curves were not treated as natural human variation, but as proof of difference. The racist system around her used her body to support false ideas that Black people were less human, more animal-like, and closer to nature than to civilization. She was dressed, positioned, and displayed in ways meant to increase shock value. Her silence was part of the show. Her lack of control was part of the business. Her fear was invisible to the audience. Her pain was irrelevant to the prophet. People did not see her as something being abused. They saw her as a curiosity. They treated her suffering as entertainment. The stage became a marketplace where her dignity was sold every single day. Sarah Baartman's exploitation was not only public entertainment, it was also wrapped in fake science. Doctors, researchers, and so-called scholars used her body to support racist theories about human hierarchy. Her physical traits were measured, studied, and written about as if she was an object, not a living woman. Her body was used to push the idea that African people were closer to animals than to Europeans. Her shape was labeled as evidence of inferiority. Her existence was turned into propaganda for white supremacy. The science was not about truth. It was about control. It was about creating a story that justified slavery, colonization, and racial violence. Her body became a tool in a larger system that needed proof to support oppression. Even after her death, the abuse did not stop. Her body was taken apart, preserved, and displayed in museums. Her remains were treated as artifacts instead of being respected as human remains. Her dignity was stolen even in death. She was not allowed rest. She was not allowed peace. Her body continued to be owned by institutions long after her life ended. The most disturbing part of Sarah Baartman's story is not just the violence done to her body, but the mindset that made it normal. People were trained to stop seeing her as human. They learned to see her as a thing. Dehumanization works by changing perception. Once a person is seen as an object, abuse becomes acceptable. Mockery becomes normal. Violence becomes entertainment. And exploitation becomes business. Her story shows how racism does not only harm the victim, it corrupts the mind of the oppressor. It teaches people to disconnect empathy from humanity. It trains society to accept cruelty as culture. This same pattern repeats itself across history. When bodies become products, suffering becomes invisible. When people become symbols, their pain becomes irrelevant. Sarah Baartman's life exposes how systems of power can turn cruelty into tradition and humiliation into spectacle. Her story did not end in the 1800s. The same logic still exists today. Black bodies are still hypersexualized, objectified, and exploited for profit. The systems have changed, but the mindset is familiar. Her legacy is a warning. It shows how easily society can turn human beings into entertainment. It shows how profit can override morality. It shows how racism can hide behind culture, curiosity, and worst of all, commerce. Remembering her is not about pity. It's about truth. It's about recognizing how systems work. It's about understanding how exploitation becomes normalized when power controls the narrative. Her life stands as proof that racism is not just hatred, it's structure, it's business, it's ideology, it's industry. Sarah Baartman's story forces a confrontation with uncomfortable truth. It shows what happens when a society decides that some people are less human than others. It reveals how easily bodies can be turned into property when power is unchecked. Her life reminds us that exploitation does not always look violent on the surface. Sometimes it looks organized, legal, and accepted. Sometimes it looks like entertainment. Sometimes it looks like culture. Her story matters because it teaches that dignity must be defended, not assumed. Humanity must be protected, not trusted to systems built on profit. She was not a symbol by choice. She was made into one by a racist system that needed her body more than it cared about her life. Remembering Sarah Baartman is not just about the past. It's about recognizing the patterns that still exist and refusing to accept them as normal. You see, I went from that when I spoke about Serena Williams, and it triggered off something in me to talk about Sarah Baartman. But also, as I speak about Sarah Baartman, it also brings me up to the present, because have things really changed? In the present, the exploitation of the Black woman's body did not end with Sarah Baartman. It only changed its costume. The chains were replaced with contracts. The cages were replaced with cameras. And the public exhibitions were replaced with screens. What once took place on physical stages now happens on digital platforms, music videos, television, film, and social media feeds. The system evolved, but the intention remained the same. The image of the Black woman has been shaped by forces that rarely serve her growth, dignity, or protection. For generations, her body has been presented before her mind, her sexuality before her intelligence, and her physical form before her humanity. This conditioning did not happen naturally. It was engineered, repeated, and reinforced through media systems that profit from distortion. From the mammy caricature to the prostitute stereotype, from the hypersexualized video vixen to the algorithm-pushed social media dancer, the message has stayed consistent. Black women are bodies before they are beings, desire before depth, flesh before spirit. This narrative did not appear by accident. It was designed through repetition and mass exposure. This programming has shaped how society sees Black women. It has also shaped how Black women are pressured to see themselves. When an image is pushed long enough, it becomes internalized. When a message is repeated long enough, it becomes identity. What starts as media representation becomes social expectation. The legacy of Sarah Baartman lives in this modern system. Her body was once displayed as a curiosity for crowds. Today, Black women's bodies are displayed as content for clicks, likes, and profit. The structure is the same, only the platform has changed. In earlier decades, Black women were boxed into narrow roles that stripped them of complexity. They were shown as mammies who existed only to serve, prostitutes who existed only to satisfy, or broken women who existed only to struggle. These images trained the world to see Black women as tools instead of human beings. As media evolved, the imagery shifted, but the message stayed the same. In the music video era of the 80s and 90s, Black women were placed in visual roles that centered on their bodies, not their voices. Their value was framed through curves, movement, and sexual display. Intelligence was not marketed. Depth was not promoted. Spirituality was not shown. The body became the product. This did not just affect how others viewed Black women. It affected how young Black girls learned to measure worth. When the only visible success looks like sexual visibility, then sexual visibility becomes the goal. When attention is the currency, then exposure becomes the strategy. Modern social media has intensified this system. Algorithms reward sexual content faster than intellectual content. Platforms push visibility based on engagement, and sexual imagery generates fast reactions. This creates a digital environment where exposure is rewarded and depth is buried. Young Black women now grow up in a world where their bodies receive more validation than their minds, where their appearance gets more attention than their ideas, where sexual performance gets more praise than personal growth. This trains identity through feedback loops. This is not empowerment. This is conditioning. Sarah Baartman was displayed for crowds. Today, Black women are displayed for algorithms. Her body was once paraded as a spectacle. Now bodies are packaged as content. Her exploitation was public and physical. Modern exploitation is digital and psychological. The same core message remains. Your value is in your body. The system no longer needs cages. It uses cameras. It no longer needs handlers. It uses contracts. It no longer needs exhibitions. It uses platforms. But the structure is identical. Profit is made from exposure. Power is gained through objectification. Control is maintained through narrative. What makes this more dangerous today is consent illusion. Modern exploitation feels like choice. It feels like freedom. It feels like agency. But when the system rewards only one type of expression, that expression becomes pressure, not freedom. When algorithms push sexual content and suppress intellectual content, they shape behavior. When visibility is tied to exposure, people adapt. When attention becomes currency, bodies become tools. This creates a pipeline of self-objectification that looks like independence but functions like programming. This constant sexual branding creates a deep internal damage. It trains Black women to see their bodies as their main asset. It teaches them that attention equals value. It disconnects identity from purpose and attaches it to appearance. It also shapes how Black men in society view Black women. When media repeats one image long enough, perception follows. Respect erodes. Protection weakens. Commitment declines. When women are framed as consumable, they are treated as disposable. This affects relationships, families, and community stability. You cannot build strong families on distorted identity. You cannot build healthy relationships on sexual stereotypes. You cannot build generational growth on objectification. The destruction of the black family is connected to the destruction of the black woman's image, because the woman is the foundation of culture, identity, and emotional structure. When her image is broken, the structure weakens. A community can only rise as high as the self-image of its woman. This exploitation is not just social, it's spiritual. It disconnects black women from their inner power, their intuition, their depth, and their divine identity. It replaces inner development with outer performance. When a woman is trained to seek validation instead of alignment, she becomes easier to manipulate. When she's trained to perform instead of grow, she becomes easier to control. Spiritual emptiness is profitable. Confusion is profitable. Low self-worth is profitable. And guess what? Insecurity is profitable. This is why the system does not promote brilliance. It does not promote stillness. It does not promote self-mastery. It promotes distraction, exposure, and performance. Because a grounded woman cannot be easily exploited. True resistance is not just rejection of exploitation. It is redefinition of identity. It is reclaiming depth. It's choosing purpose over performance. It's choosing alignment over attention. Black women are not bodies before beings. They are minds, spirits, creators, builders, leaders, nurturers, thinkers, innovators, and visionaries. Their value does not come from curves. It comes from consciousness. The future of the black family depends on restoring the image of the black woman as sacred, powerful, intelligent, and whole. Not as a product, not as content, not as a commodity. The same system that exploited Sarah Baartman still exists. It just wears better marketing. And the same resistance is required. Awareness, truth, and identity protection. The exploitation of black women's bodies is not new. It's historical, systemic, and intentional. It did not begin with social media, and it will not end there. It simply adapts to each generation's technology. Sarah Baartman's story was not an exception. It was a blueprint. Her exploitation was the foundation of a system that learned how to turn black bodies into profit streams. Today's digital platforms are just modern stages. The same spectacle continues. The same psychology operates. And the same damage spreads through different channels. The destruction of the black family begins with the destruction of the black woman's image. Because when her identity is distorted, the foundation of the community becomes unstable. Restoring the image of the black woman is not just cultural work, it's survival work, it's spiritual work, it's a generational work, and it's necessary for true collective rise. If we don't identify this, then we are doomed, and this disgrace will continue well beyond our lives and into the future. And right now, The whole Sarah Baartman exploitation is happening right up under our noses as we scroll and become visually stimulated on the black woman's body. I love my sisters, even when they don't know who they are, even when they get caught up in the exploitation and they think the value is only in their bodies. I wish we would collectively get together and change that. But like an 18-wheeler speeding down the highway at 100 miles an hour, you just can't tap the brake and come to a standstill. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort and collective work, and that's what I'm here for. I hope these words and expressions, from what I saw from Sarah Baartman's exploitation to the modern day, have caused you to think in a certain way, to change. Not that you're wrong, but for us to change the system collectively and not ignore it as entertainment. This is the work I do, and I've lived many decades, and I'm going up into higher ages now, which has given me a higher perspective. The same way when you go up in an airplane and look down on your city and see how small it becomes with each passing second. So that's an insight that I wanted to share. I just want to say that if you lasted this long, I truly appreciate you, and I'll ask you to share this with someone who would enjoy the words and absorb them. And let's create a movement of becoming better as a people, because we can do it. The power is in our hands. Make sure to go to LANCESCURVX.com and sign up there, because all of my work will be there, even if YouTube and other social media platforms hold it back. I love and appreciate you all. I wish you all the best in health, mental stability, strength, and spiritual growth and prosperity. On to the next one. LANCESCURV out. And as always, I wish you nothing else but peace